I'll want you to have them as early as possible, because you will need them. There will not be any need to replace them next year. So yes, even if IFRS 18 is now incorporated to the new standard, I will not require you to buy new standards. If there are any key updates between now and by the time you sit for APC next year, then what will happen is that we'll just ask you to print the additional work, so that the books you have now, I'll want you to start highlighting, to start making yourself familiar and owning to those books. You will be required and allowed to bring them into all your assessments next year. So it's an open book, and you're required to bring the standards. So the earlier you have them and the earlier you familiarize yourself with them, the better. So in your face note, I clarified which ones you're going to need. There are ones that we call the handbooks, and there are ones we call the textbooks. So the handbooks are a must. So if you are saying that I'm just a little bit strapped now for cash, then it should be fine to delay the textbooks. But I will want you to prioritize the handbooks. So the handbooks will then be one, your volume 1, which is IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards. Then volume 2, which will be your accounting standard, your auditing standards, which incorporates your King 4 as well as your Companies Act. Then volume 3 will be your legislation, your tax legislation, and those are the 3 that I'll want you to have at all points. I'll also want you to bring them in class. As all our lecturers are talking to them, I'll want you to have them with you and be able to ask that, yes, wait, I hear you're talking about this, but where do I find this? Is this in the standard? Because the more you know that things are in there, the more it then summarizes or simplifies what? Your studies. So this is how then the handbooks work. So the handbooks are the primary tools we're going to use. Then you might say that I need a little bit more. If you need a little bit more, then that's where the textbooks come in. So the textbooks that we have recommended are the ones that are used in CTAs. Some of them I use myself. Some of them I used back in the days as well. And what they do, they really help sometimes if you're a little bit stuck in terms of just unpacking some of those things. But you're gonna have the CTA notes, which are very comprehensive. You're gonna have the handbooks. You're gonna have the lectures. So for textbooks, I'll want you to just make sure that you are able to balance things off. And maybe if you want to just talk about your own circumstances, that's where you and I can just catch up and see if you're gonna need the textbooks. And maybe also you can say, let me give it a month, and you give it May and see whether you are managing without a textbook or so. If that is working, then that could be fine. But if you need a textbook, that will also be fine. So it just depends on people. I find that some people prefer the textbooks, and I find that some are comfortable without a textbook. So that is generally a personal decision. But if you want some guidance, don't hesitate to reach out. So that is what we're going to deal with in number 1. So in number 1, you'll have a better idea of what each of the lecturers will be taking you through during the course of the program. So you will have that clarity that, yes, I might not know the content, but I'm clear how everyone is thinking about this journey. And if now you are saying that, yeah, but based on what you said, I feel like I'm not there. So don't hesitate to give us that feedback, so that if we are now saying that, oh, maybe there's something we didn't take into account, we can resolve it now before we even get there. So that is number 1. So that's what this first phase is all about, to make sure you understand how it's going to work, technically speaking. Then number 2, It is what we call the technical phase. So when we talk about the technical phase, we are now talking about the doing the work, covering the topics, going through the tutorials, consulting, engaging. That's what we're going to do. So how have we thought about it? So you're going to see today when I start talking about accounting that it is there is a transaction framework that we will want you to get into. How to account for transactions. Once you are there, then the auditing team will come and say, how do you audit the transaction and the financials that the transactions ended up in? Then once you are there, the tax team will come and say, what is the tax implications of these transactions you've entered into? Then afterwards, the math team is back and saying, how does that all of this transaction translate to value creation? So that is how we thought about the program. And we'll therefore want to make sure that we do as much work as possible. That's why accounting phase is much longer than the others. Because the others said previously that the reason candidates struggle when we say do the income tax calculation, they are struggling to figure out what was the accounting transaction and what should be the accounting transaction and how to marry the two. So it became an issue before, and that's what we are looking to what we are looking to just clarify. So I see some chats. Let me just see. If I order the textbook via Endonamu, how do this get to me? So, okay, so for the textbook, we then deliver. So the KMB is where we get those delivery form, the delivery address where you can just confirm whether you want them to be delivered to work, to an alternative address. So once the KMB is sorted, you can put your address there and then we'll deliver to that address. So that's number one. So if you are local, it's even better. They've procured some books last week, so that is always easier. Otherwise, if we have to deliver, we use the likes of Aramex DSV, and that usually for main centers 1 to 2 days. Then number two, I was exempted on some of the CIMA strategic level. Will this impact my enrollment through the CIMA too? Shingirai, the way that works, the most important thing, just to confirm, is it from a South African perspective? Did you sit for CIMA through the South African route? Because that matters. I forgot to mention that if you are not in the CIMA route, what is it? If you are not in the South African route, there are additional requirements. Maybe just to quickly talk about them now. So if you have acquired a foreign qualification, let's say you acquire foreign qualification in ZIM, qualification I mean the undergrad, because undergrad is required. Let's say you become accounting in ZIM, or you become accounting in Namibia, and now you want to take advantage of this pathway. So what SAICA will then want you to do, they will want you to, if you want to write the SAICA exam, they'll want you to then send your qualification to SAQA, and then SAQA will need to sign off that this is at least NQF7 according to South African standards. Then that is a SAQA requirement. And if you are there with a foreign qualification, it's worth noting that SAQA, from the experience of some of our candidates, they take significant amount of time, and you might need to start the process as soon as possible. I've had a candidate that only started that process around June, July, and they passed the APC, but SAQA process was not done, so SAICA could not release the SAICA eligibility, and therefore they missed the APC in that year. So if you are there, you've got a foreign qualification and you want to write this SAICA exam, then you need to do what? You need to start that process as soon as possible. But if you are from a ZIM perspective, then you don't need the SAQA process. You'll need to then have your transcript for your undergraduate degree. You'll need to have your certificate for the degree. You will need to have the CIMA, letter of good standing, and you'll need to have it's 4 things. So I'll put it in a note. I know I've got it. I've got it. But I just wanted to clarify that so that you know those requirements. But as I'm saying, it's always easier to know now. If you want to just then check with the professional bodies, you can check and they'll then sign it off and you know it's out of the way. Where do you get the list of textbook? Oh, thank you so much. Please guide us, should we buy the 2023, 2024? That should be fine. Yes, that should be fine. Yes. So the ones that are available is 2023, 2024. So there are a few amendments from last year, so that's perfectly fine. So the ones that will be printed for 2024, 2025 will only know after June, so that's too late for us. Please buy the 2023, 2024 should be fine. Thank you, thank you. Do they consider MBA as SAQA level 9? Yeah, so if it's level 9, then I think, yeah, it's even better. It's even better. So what you will therefore need is it will be worth it to just check the eligibility now and just make sure that it's out of the way. But if it's level 9, I think it's quite acceptable. Okay. All right. Yes. So as I was saying, for the technical phase, it's all about just unpacking the what? It's all about unpacking the technical and working through and making sure you are proficient. So the way we do it, as you will have seen, there are lectures as well as tutorials. Then the lectures will then be working through the content with you, giving you guidance and helping you understand how some of the things will be tested. Then in order to just make sure we are there in terms of how they are tested, you will then have this discussion tutorial in advance. And when I say in advance, when we issue the phase note, you will then know which ones you need to work with. And then afterwards, what will then happen will then be, we will work through the key topics as I was saying. But before we are done with a particular phase, you will need to submit a tutorial to us. So that is the one we mark and we just check in terms of your writing, in terms of your technical, and we then give you a detailed feedback report on what you are doing well, what you are not doing well, and our advice going forward. So that is how each and every of the 4 phases is structured. So the assessments or the tutorials here, they will be open book as well as the APC. So open book, you can bring anything, you can bring the headbooks, you can bring the textbooks, but you'll see that once you start to master the technique, the technical, you will find that you don't need as much content with you. And I think, as you were saying, 8 hours just disappear like that. And I've seen so many people saying that I had all these books, I didn't get a chance to open them. Then lastly, before we close off the program, we will then come back and say, when we talk about the APC, what is it? So it will make sense because our academic head, Fedi, will then talk through those slides I was talking to you about, and he might also go to an extent of just clarifying how the assessment process works, how we assess you there. So I didn't go through that in detail, so he will come and help you to understand. And by the time we are done, it will be absolutely clear. Then how then the assessment structure works. So the assessment structure or the milestone for transition, there's no key milestone. Then technical, what do we have? We've got 5 discussion tutorials for accounting, 3 discussion tutorials for audit, 3 for math, and 3 for tax. But accounting, don't see it in isolation. You will then see it as the building blocks for the other technical work. And at the end of each phase, there is that integrated tutorial submission I was talking about. Then lastly, when we exit the course, we're going to have personal development plans, PDPs. And this is then in terms of the timetable, how it works, and just as I was saying earlier on, it is aligned to the portal. And the last thing to talk about is the phase notes. So the phase notes, as I've mentioned earlier, they talk about the objective of of any engagement we're going to have. Then they talk about what is expected from you before the sessions. And also what we are going to do during the sessions. And what do you need to do after the sessions? Because this will then help you to prepare. This will then help you to get an understanding of what will then be happening. And mentally speaking, it's very important. So the typical work to do could be to read the standard, not to study, just to read and know where things are. It could be to watch some of the preliminary videos. It could be maybe additional material that we might issue. So we will be specifically clear what is it that you need to do ahead of that. And then that is how then the course will be structured. So that is just the overall structure. But one of the things that we're going to do today is just unpacking the accounting. So what I want for us to do now is for us to take a break, and we're then going to come back and discuss the accounting elements. So just to confirm, everybody got the accounting material?
Are you talking about the textbooks or?
No, the slides. Oh, have you got in the textbook? If you got in the textbook, that will be great. That will be great. But you'll see that in the slides, I've just put the PDF one to download. So I'm not worried about that today. So I see another hand. So I've just shared the link to the material in case you didn't get it. But those are the ones we want to cover when we come back. I'm just going to work through 2 standards, IFRS 16 and IFRS I16 and IFRS 16. When I say work through, I want you to start understanding how the standard works. But it's not a lecture. It's just a more of a know what you're supposed to know. Bevan, please go for it.
Sorry, no, I was just wanting to know what you would talk. Is it the ones that were emailed? But I'm going into the link now, so I'll just check what is there and print it.
Okay, yes. So that's so it will say accounting at the cover page. So sorry, unpacking IFRS and on the cover page.
Okay, so just on that, is it good if we just print it and make our notes on there?
So yeah, if you print here, it's always easier. I think I'm sometimes old-fashioned. I like printed, so I'm not sure about you. Are you one of those? Do you prefer printed?
I like to print. I like to print and then make notes on it as it goes along. It's always easier.
Perfect. Yeah, you can do so. Okay, sure. Linda, please.
Is it the same what is on the files or not?
No. So when you say on the file, you mean where?
Well, I went and pick up my study material there. I
Oh,
was
okay. Oh, no,
so
no.
is
No.
is
So
it the,
that's not that one. Yes, that's not that one.
okay?
Yeah. So that, I'm just gonna talk about how that one works and how to use those. Yes, as well.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Okay. Cool. All right. So let's do 20. So we'll just be back at 11:40. But I've just shared on the chat here just in case. So 11:40, we'll be back and we'll talk about this. Thank you. Oh no, slides. The structure. So the course has got 3 phases. So in the first phase, we will then just be providing a high level guidance on what is it that you need in order to really bridge this technical gap. And then when I say that you need to apply IFRS, what is IFRS? How does IFRS work? If you are to open a standard, what are you going to see and how do you navigate around it? Then that's just, for instance, from an accounting. Then also from an auditing, there are international auditing standards. What are those? How do they work? Do they work the same way as accounting standards? Are they structured the same way? That's what you'll also get to understand. Then from a tax perspective, you've got the tax legislation. You've got the value-added tax that you need to master, the Income Tax Act that you need to master, and there are other tax that or legislation related that you need to be aware of, like your Tax Administration